Hello everyone, Maurice and welcome to Things Invest. Talk about investing, finance, and professional development. For today's video, Ethereum only. The investment I'm going to talk about today will be Ethereum ticket ETH. With respect to Ethereum, as I'm recording around 9:24 a.m. on the Eastern time, it's currently trading around like the $2,149, down about 5% so far, or 4.64% to be more specifically. With respect to the negative media affectation they've been having so far across the both equity side and the crypto side of the spectrum, is mainly coming from two negative catalysts that we have percolating from yesterday until today this morning. With respect to one was the FOMC meeting, and the second one is the negative job report. With respect to the FOMC meeting, the synopsis based on the Federal Reserve that we heard from yesterday, the topic was basically cultivating around the quantitative tightening or the tapering perspective timeline going forward, right? With respect to the Fed and the central bank on potentially or gradually reducing the asset purchases to further stimulate the economy in more of a monetary circulation type of perspective, right? It seems that sentiment so far, based on the verbiage that we heard in meetings so far, we're leaning more towards more of a foreshadowed perspective, or the way they call it, more of a need for patience at the moment, right? It seems like, with respect to the current states of the economy right now, we still need a little bit more substantial further progress based on some of the committee and the specific verbiage that they've said that tightening wouldn't make sense at this moment right now, but in the near future, it would be an ideal proposition going forward. And respect to inflationary pressure, the Fed has also mentioned something about that, despite the inflation's, kind of rising as fast as expected, obviously because of the economy coming back up, and also because of the fact that, the Feds have been sustaining our U.S. economy for the 1.5 years so far, that, now they're all screaming about, oh, inflation is like all happening all in a sudden. It's not happening all in a sudden. It has been happening for quite some time now on inflating, our economy, but at the same time depreciating our U.S. dollars, right? So now the U.S. Fed is trying to basically pull back by continue to print more money, if you may, right? Basically, turn off the printer or turn off several of the printers and leave some open still, but at the same time, like slowly transition back into the normal economy, right? So it needs to slowly and gradually progress from there. So it's not a sudden fashion, but I guess like the media affectation based on what we heard so far from a lot of the news channels, and obviously this news, right, on quantitative tightening, obviously have an anti-correlation effect to both the crypto side and also on the equity side, which subsequently drove some sell-off from there, right? Another news that we got was the job report that came out from the U.S. Department of Labor earlier this morning, right? So with respect to the U.S. weekly first-time jobless claim, it totaled to be about like 373,000 for the week of end July 3rd, right? Which compares to the Dow Jones estimate, it was around like 350,000, and basically lower than the expectations, and the previous week's levels revised up to 7,000 from the 364,000 to 371,000. A job growth slows, right? So the levels, continual claims decreased to about like 3.34 million now, down to like about 145,000 from the previous week revised level. So obviously, with respect, this negative media affectation, despite the uptick in the first-time applicants, right? The decreasing numbers continues, to represent a lower level, of insured employment in comparisons to the lowest point that we had back in March 2020, right? So obviously, these two negative affectations says a lot about the U.S. economy, right? Definitely two negative news on to the economy, despite, with respect to Ethereum has been just having positive news, in the last basically 4 consecutive days, right? Just to keep tabs, right? JP Morgan proof of stake article that came out, right? The $542 million bet on Ethereum by an unknown entity. With respect to the London fork news that we're hearing that's expected to happen on August 4th, with respect to a more media affectation coming from Goldman Sachs on their clients' relationship letters yesterday, and also with respect to the more of a trivial news with respect to Barry Moore, U.S. congressman, decided to purchase around range from $5,000 to $75,000 worth of Dogecoin, Ethereum, and Cardano in his portfolio in a time frame between like May to June, right? So it seems like this sell-off has got us back down to the ideal level of dollar cost averaging $2,154. So I'm gonna go through the technical analysis to see how we're trending right now. Are we gonna see more of a sell-off? Are we gonna see more of a pump going forward? How should we be dollar cost averaging and maneuvering through these, economical cycle, but at the same time, these black swan events, if you may. So stay tuned, stick around, let's make some money. Alright, so moving on to the technical analysis for Fomc ETH. I'm recording as of 9:31 a.m. on Eastern Time, 1 minute after market open. With respect to the equity market, you can see that we're selling off ever since that negative job report that we got earlier today, and also with respect to the negative FOMC meeting, foreshadowing about the inflationary pressure and the quantitative tightening foreshadows going forward, right? So with respect to SPY, we're selling off obviously because of the correlations to the negative news that we've had, down about 1.25%, and Nasdaq's down about 1.6% so far. And I think this is something we were foreseeing the whole time. Right? We were highly stretched up on the MACD perspective on the daily. We are crossing down right now, so I do see some of a sell-off coming for Nasdaq. I actually see some sort of a correction coming for Nasdaq specifically, knowing the fact that we are forming some sort of a dead cross coming, despite the RSI kind of dipping more of a neutralized, normalized level. With respect to SPY, we are slowly correcting, but less severe in comparison to Nasdaq, right? But we're still crossing downwards a little bit, obviously from the negative news, right? We do have a gap that needs to be formed, but we are pretty much overstretched right now. On our side, we were highly overbought at that level for ever since like yesterday. We were extremely overbought. So today, with that corrections from the negative FOMC meeting with the negative job report, just makes sense for us to get back down to more of a cool down level, if you may, right? So that's the equity market, but because of these two negative news, it will have a negative impact onto both crypto and the equity market. So it's not an anti-correlation effect that's being affected at the moment. So that's something we have to be mindful of, right? With respect to Ethereum, you could see that currently we are testing at the comfort level again, which is ideal. And I, like I keep telling you guys, like the $2,150 level is a level that we're expecting, right? Like again, right, these consecutive positive news with respect to the first one, JP Morgan news. Secondly, the $542 million bet news. And then the EY take a crack at the Nightfall 3 protocol news. And then the London Fork news, right, around here. The Goldman Sachs news. And then subsequently Barry Moore. It's like a cherry on top of the sundae, being a proponent for that as a U.S. congressman. Also put some buying pressure from there. And with respect to a negative FOMC meeting that we had today, people fleeing back to the safe haven, like more of the safe assets, or like buying US dollars again. And also on top of the negative job report, obviously, but drive selling pressures across the board, right? People fleeing from investments, but going back to US currencies again, as US currencies start to appreciate now, which makes sense, right? So right now, let's take a look at the chart real quick for the MACD. I think we might have a little bit more of a selling pressure despite going down to like the $2,145 level, knowing the fact that we did break that 2,150. So on top of that, we have to know that the MACD is pretty much like crossing down right now. You could see that we have a form of small curvature, and despite the RSI is kind of normalizing right now, but with respect to the propensity going right now, because we broke through the level of resistance, the 2,150, we have to kind of go down a little bit more to that $2,050 level. So I think for me, I will probably buy some today because this is a really good level that we've tested like about 21 times so far, if I'm keeping tabs historically. But we do have a propensity to go down a little bit more because, like, again, right, RSI needs to cool down a little bit, right? And MACD, we are forming some sort of a curvature. And I told you that the apex was formed on basically yesterday, right? And that's exactly what happened. So we do see maybe 2050 coming, and I think that's very logical, right? So that's how I would play, in terms of a risk mitigation going forward. Would I advise completely staying away? No, I think, because like I keep saying, right, this is a good level to buy, right? It's just I'm not saying that this is a best level to buy. I'm just saying this is the best risk mitigation and also best opportunity cost weighted way to buy, right? I'm not saying this is the best level to buy. You could probably you could have bought like at anywhere around like the 1700 back in the day on the 27th, right? And I did. And we did because we were highly oversold at that point. As we looked at the chart, right, we knew that it was highly oversold at that point right now. But we are at the more of a substantive resistance level right now. We do see maybe 2050. So you just need to continue to chip away your chips a little bit slowly and slowly to dollar cost average and build your position out from there. Because I don't foresee us to be actually cracking below the 2000, because again, the 2000 is a very substantive level that will be relatively hard to crack, to be honest with you. But if we do, we'll be right there with you buying, right? And I think this news on FOMC meeting is negative, but it's just a media affectation that makes it look like it's a very sudden negative news, but rather is a more of a foreshadow gradual news that's going to happen slowly over time, right? It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to probably take about like a year and a half for us to completely go through this, and then we will normalize in the economy, and you'll feel like nothing happened ever again, right? You probably forgot about the pandemic by then, right? And that's the time when the price for Ethereum will be going way higher than the level that we're at right now, right? So when fear is being stirred into the equation right now, you have to apply logics for you to maneuver these cycles, right? And that's exactly what we're doing, right? You don't ever see me talk about like, oh my god, I'm chasing the pump. This is like going to the moon right now. Like we have to be pumping it up. Like I don't ever talk about things like that. I always talk about based on mathematics that we see in front of us. I look at it based on the charts and analytics that we see in front of us. I don't put any hype into it, and that's not the way to invest, right? You don't ever want to put emotions into it, right? So again, current level, despite the sell-off that we might be seeing going forward, 2,140, great level to buy in. Next level, $2,050 level. If you continue to do this and practice this patience, and at the same time with logics, you will never lose the market. That's just a fact, right? You can only lose when you sell. All right, just to recap all the numbers in the technical analysis, I think the attractive level of the 2,150 is a really beautiful level for us to get in. Again, this is a level that we tested about 21 times so far historically. It's a very substantive level. But I do see a little bit more of a selling pressure, maybe just a minus $100 from here to $2,050. So, but we're in the business of risk mitigation, right? And with respect to risk profile right now, with respect to the sell-off that we've had, despite the 6 consecutive positive news that we've had so far in the last 4 days, that it just makes sense for you to, incur more positioning right now because the risk is, deplete a little bit more in a more of a normalized perspective. So good level to buy right now, 2050. I will be eyeing this level. I would ideally like to buy maybe 5 Ethereum from there. I'll probably buy like 2 today, just to have some risk exposure. I continue to build up my position because I do want to get 100 Ethereum down the road someday. So these are the opportune times to buy and not to be fearful, right? Again, fear is not a logical, perspective. It's not a logical proposition for you to make investments, right? You never make investments based on, oh, I feel like it's good. You never do that, right? You always think about that in a very quantitative perspective rather than more of an emotional perspective, right? 9,800 to 20% corporate adoption, 4.4 times. All right, so that's it for their respect my technical analysis on Ethereum ticket ETH. Hopefully this is helpful to you in terms of like structuring and logically thinking about how you should be executing your price point while at the same time mitigate your risk profile going forward. Please feel free to ask me any questions, if you have any questions in the meantime or there was anything unclear, happy to address them a little bit further. And, I really appreciate you if you could hit the like button, subscribe button, or the bell notification, and watch out for next coming up. Take care. Bye.